Hi, I'm Molly, and this is Know Your Green. Today on Know Your Green, we're going to learn about one of my favorite plants, trees. Now, I think that there are three pretty easy ways to identify a tree. The first is by its bark. This is the bark of a river birch tree. You can see that it pulls apart away from the tree, almost like paper. It's so fun. Now, this is probably our most famous tree at camp. It's our cedar. I think cedar trees are also really easy to identify by their bark if you look up real close. It's kind of like pulling apart and really messy and stringy almost. And you can also tell a cedar tree by its smell. They're incredibly fragrant, and a lot of people, when they cut down these trees, want this wood because it still has that really nice cedar smell. Another great tree to learn by its bark is the shagbark hickory. These trees are super important because they give habitat to bats who like to climb in under their little flaps of their shaggy bark. Think there are any bats in there sleeping? The other way to identify a tree, and probably the easiest most of the year, is by their leaves. This is the leaf of a sycamore tree. Now, I think sycamores are most identifiable by their bark. But since this one is so close to the ground, unlike many of the others in the forestry, we can get an up-close look at its leaf. We have lots of sycamores growing down by the lake because they love water. Now, one of the fun ways that one of our former staff members, Brian Harold, taught me to identify a sycamore tree is that there's a little saying that goes with it, that the more you look up, the sicker it gets. It's not really sick, but the bark is peeling, so it kind of looks like it's sick. Some of the sycamore bark that shed is just all over the ground after a storm. The third way to identify a tree is by its size. Take a pawpaw, for example. These are just a mid-level story tree, meaning they're not gonna get super tall or their trunks are not gonna get really big and round growing up in a forest. So these do really well with like half sunlight, and they produce just the niftiest fruits that you can harvest in August or September. Boop. Oh! Look what we found. We found a baby pawpaw. It's often referred to as the Indiana banana, and I think I might have to do just a completely separate video on foraging. So something to note about pawpaws and many other trees is that oftentimes they grow in groves. So they're gonna grow in an area where they drop a bunch of their seeds, and lots of other like trees will pop up. And we have tons of pawpaw groves all over camp that I think not a lot of people know about. And one of those is on the walk down to the pavilion. There are just pawpaw trees lining this whole area. Actually, there's a whole pawpaw grove growing behind Poplar Cabin, and we probably should have just called it pawpaw instead of poplar because there's more pawpaws there. Here's that grove behind Poplar. It's so magical. Okay, so there is a poplar tree growing behind Poplar Cabin, but it's small. Spiders everywhere. Spiders. Ah! Don't worry, I didn't find any spiders, just their webs. Let's learn to identify trees by their leaves. Red oak. Redbud. Sycamore. I forget. Pawpaw. Leaves as big as your head. Thanks for coming with me on my tree adventure. Until next time. The tree I chose to stand behind has a giant poison ivy vine. Don't touch that. Don't do it. Don't touch it.